quiet here on a beautiful November 27th, 2024. That's right, the day before Thanksgiving. And man, I just had me a great little trip up to the lumber yard, to the sawmill actually, not just the lumber yard, but to the sawmill. And what we are getting ready to do today over the Thanksgiving holiday, since the Abbey is shut down, I am going to be in the shop building solid bottom boards. That's right. I built several different versions of bottom boards, and in the past they've all been screened. But this year and for this time, I'm going to build solid bottom boards. I have found just from doing all the removals, I think bees do better if your hive has got a solid bottom as opposed to a screen bottom. I know we get mighty warm temperatures here in southeast Louisiana, but being that I place my hives the way I place them along a tree line, so that by the noontime the sun is above them and we already got shade on them, it's not really an issue about temperature building up inside of the hive enough to make a difference. And I'm convinced that bees do better. They're able to control the airflow in the hive a lot easier if the boards or if your bottom of your board is solid as opposed to screen. So let's get inside the shop, get all this material unloaded on the cart, and we can get inside the shop. And the way that I'm going to be doing this, making these bottom boards, it's very, very simple. The basic tools of a wood shop: table saw, chop saw, drill. That's really all that you really need. I'm also going to be using the sander, which most people wouldn't have a sander, but a planer would work just as well, and that's a tool that many people have. And by the grace of God, by the end of this video, you'll see the way that I make my bottom boards and the reasoning behind the reason why I build my bottom boards like this. And before we even begin, I chose to get my boards at 12-foot length. Now that's just entirely too long. However, if I'm thinking about cutting my material up, that's what I think about. So if our board is about 20 inches this way and about 15 inches this way, I figure if I can cut these boards, that's 35 inches. So if I can cut these boards to 36 inches, which is a good length, that I can handle that length, then it's going to make things a lot easier on me when I go to joining them and ripping them. So that's my thinking behind it. So if I add this length and this length, and I get 35, if I cut my boards to 36 inches, that gives me an inch to play with. And then if you multiply 4 times 36, that gives you 144, which is 12 feet. So a 12-foot board, I'm going to have basically no waste on it. It's just going to work out perfect. So these boards are all 12 foot in length, maybe 12.1, 12.2, and then I'm going to take them, set my stop on my chop saw right here to 3 foot, and that's the first thing I'm going to do is cut all of these boards right here to 3 foot lengths, so that they're going to be a lot easier for me to handle. The first part of our job here, getting these pieces of 2x4 cut to length, is done now. And that's one of the things we always do around here. We take big wood and we make it into smaller wood. And now we're getting ready to make this even smaller. And this 2x4, it's rough. It's very rough. And the dimensions of it are pretty irregular. So we really have to do, not that the bees care, but as a woodworker I care. So I want to get my material, within a 32nd of an inch of thickness with everything, because it just becomes a better end product if everything is done that way. And so the next part of what we're getting ready to do is we're going to what we call face our material, which is this side of the board. We're going to run this onto our joiner and get it flat and smooth, and then we'll take that part and then we'll run it on our edge, and that way we're going to get a 90-degree on our edge right here, and then that way when I take it over to my table saw and cut it on my table saw, it's going to be exactly the right, everything will be correct, same measurement on that. So that wasn't too bad, cutting that stuff into length. But when I bring it over to the joiner, we're going to have to run, might have to run it once or twice on the bottom, once or twice on the side to get everything cut. So it's going to take us probably twice as long to do this pile. So I'm going to bring the card over to the joiner now, and we're going to get started on that job. Now for those who aren't familiar with woodworking machinery, this little machine right here is called the joiner. And all it is a head, a machined head that has knives in it, 3 knives in it, that spin, and this side of the joiner is up a little bit higher. I'm exaggerating. It's up a little bit higher than this side of the joiner right here. And as your piece of wood crosses over from this piece to this piece, the knives that are inside that head cut the wood to make it match up with this side. So you're actually cutting away wood from the bottom of the board. And when you pass it all the way through, hopefully we'll get it on 1 or 2 passes that the knives will hit all the spots on the piece of wood, making it completely flat. And once it's completely flat, then I'll flip it up on its side, put it up against the fence right here, and this fence and this bed are 90 degrees to each other, and I'll run it once or twice, and then I'll get my edge completely at 90 degrees, and that's exactly what we need to pass through our table saw on the next one. Let me show you how one of them is done. So it doesn't matter. I like to pick the straightest side to go through it. So this one right here is a little bit straighter. So we turn on our machine. Side. So now I'm going to take this side, which is now flat and straight, and we're going to run it against the fence, holding it against the fence, and we're going to get a 90-degree angle now. We want to make sure we get a good edge. Do it one more time. Work really well when we get our square and put it up against it. It should be square. Let's see. Well, I would say that's perfect. Like I said, that's a pretty big pile. It's going to take me a while to do it. So after I get it all done, I'll show you what the pile looks like. Well, that took almost an hour, probably a little bit more to do that. That was a little bit longer. Most of the boards only had to do one, so most of them were just one. So there's probably about a dozen that I had to do twice, running it over the machine. But for the most part, it all ran pretty good. And this machine is not hooked up to our dust system. And here is all the the shavings that all that wood made. A lot of shavings. I got to clean that up. I got to push this over to the table saw, and then what I'm getting ready to do right now is to rip our boards to width. We jointed our edge and faced our bottom of it. So now we're going to put all this wood on through our table saw and rip it and to the same width. And most of these boards are about 3.5 inches wide right now, give or take. And so because I want everything the same size, all of it gets run through, and I'm going to choose, because I want to get the most out of it, so I'm going to go with 3 1/4 inches. 3 3/8 is what I'm going to use. 3 3/8 of an inch. We're going to rip all these to that dimension, and after that, any of this, some on this board, some of this stuff will come off, but whatever is left on here, then we're going to rip that out with that plow. And here are all of our 2x4s now cut all to the same width, which is 3 5/16. And the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to, because we got all the widths are the same, now we have to make sure all of our thickness of our wood is the same. Most of these are about 1.5 inches, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run them through our sander. I'm going to keep them as close to 1.5 inches as I can, so they might come out 1 7/16 inches, something like that. Hopefully I just run it through one pass to the sander. Now most people don't have a sander like the one I'm going to be using, but most wood shops, if you got a shop, you have a planer. And so then this would be the last step as far as dimensionalizing the wood, getting it all the same dimension. So hopefully by the time we get this thing finished, our piece of lumber is going to become 3 5/16 wide and 1 7/16 thick, and they should all be 36 inches because we cut all those to the same. And then at that point, once they go through the sander, then we got to come back to the table saw. Let's run them through the sander now. This machine is our sander, and it's basically just like a planer, except that instead of having a knife in it, it has these big sanding discs in it. It's just one huge disc of paper, and the board passes from the conveyor on the bottom, and then it passes underneath the belt down here on the bottom, and then comes out on the other side. Really simple, and it works very well. So there's our stack of wood. Let me go ahead and set the depth on the machine, and we're going to get this stuff running as well. Our boards have all been dimensionalized to the same dimension. I mean, and you can tell these boards are flat and square. The corners are squares. In fact, there's another good way of checking. Look, you can't even hardly see, and there's no clamp or anything, but you can hardly even see the line where these boards are touching together. So that's it's a pretty good job on getting these things down to the correct size, which is 3 1/4, 3 5/16 by 1 7/16 inches. Now the next part is we're going to head back to the table saw, but first we got to lay our board out to know what we got to cut on it. The next step we're getting ready to do is to cut the rabbet that is on the edge of the boards that are now ready to go. And this is what I'm talking about, the rabbet. This cut right here, this is what we're getting ready to figure out how to do and where to cut it. And let me show you by example, because it might be a little bit easier for me to explain the purpose of this cut right here and why we want this width of the wood right up here. And I'm going to use my buddy Greg Burns' Endura Hive box to show that. Let me grab the camera and show you down here. This is how our hive body is going to be sitting on our bottom board. And you can see how at this point right here, the edge of the board, edge of our box, is sitting right on the edge of our bottom board. And the reason for the width, this width right here, this 3/4 of an inch right here, because that corresponds to the width of the wood up here. Then if you look on the inside of the box, all the way at the bottom, you can see it is flush right here. I like to have a little bit more than just flush. So when I do these, I'm gonna make them, instead of 3/4, I'm gonna make them a little full, maybe 13/16 or even 7/8. I don't know yet, but we've got to lay out our piece of wood so that we get the 3/4 or 7/8 width right here, and then it will step down right here to accommodate our material right here. So this material right here, the bottom board, the wood on the bottom, that's going to be 3/4 of an inch. So we know we need, from this cut right here, we need 3/4 of an inch to make it right here, and then we need about 1/2 an inch from there to here, so that we give it our space for our bees to crawl into. And that's how, and when you pull your box over it, there you go. You can, this becomes the entrance to the hive. They'll go in here, then they have to climb up, and now they're on the inside of the hive right there. And so this cut right here, this is what we're getting ready to figure out how to make and how to cut it. Well, I've got the hive body on the bottom board right now, and as you can see, we have the Endura Hive wax dip bee box right there. And this is from our buddy Greg Burns at Nature's Image Valley. And last year when I was at Nobby, they gave me this box, and on the back side of it, they even put my name on it. So Greg, thanks for this. Great product, and I do appreciate the fineness of the wax dip bee boxes, as well as all the other wax dip products that y'all make, Greg. I got my board laid out to know where how to set my table saw, and let me show you what we got. I've got this. This is going to be our shoulder, so this is going to be about 13/16 of an inch from this edge right here to this line, and then we have about 5/8 of an inch from this point to this point, which is where the shoulder, where our 3/4 inch wood is going to be laying on. So we're going to make this cut on the table saw first, and then after we make this cut right here, which will be run on the edge right here, I'll flip it over on the bottom, and then we'll make this cut. So it takes 2 passes, and after I cut all these things out, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, that job is done, and all of our cuts are done. Well, we should say that the rabbits all done, and we got a nice pile of wood right here from the drop-offs. So we're going to take this cart right now, and we're going to bring it over to the chop saw right over there, and we're going to cut all of these to length. And in each one of these boards we have we have a long side and a short end. So I think when we're finished, I think we're going to wind up with 28 boxes. Now all of our pieces are all cut to length. There's still a lot more to do, but not today. Tomorrow will be another day. And still got to screw them together, put the bottom boards in there, and then put the blocking on. So we still got a lot to do, but by the end of it, we'll come out with some pretty nice bottom boards. All right, we'll pick this up tomorrow. Good morning. Man, it is chilly outside. When I got here at the Abbey this morning, it was 31 degrees, so pretty chilly this morning. And today we're getting ready to, the first thing that we're getting ready to do is, we got 56 of these long lengths right here. These are the long sides of our bottom boards. And what I've got to do is, because the way I'm attaching these boards together, I'm going to be using 3-inch screws that will go in this way from the long side into the short side. And to get that, make sure I get my screws started in the right spot, because I only got about 2 inches right here. I've got to get that thing pretty centered right. And to do that, I went and made me a little fixture on the drill press right over there. So I'm going to grab you the camera, give you a close-up on how I made that little fixture. This fixture is really simple. I'm just using 2 edges, 2 pieces of wood as edges for my piece of material to rest up against, to give me my distance of my hole right here and here. And then I have another piece of material at this point right here as a stop. So so that I can take my piece, my long board, slide it to my stop, drill that hole, push it forward, and drill that hole as well. And then all I've got to do, as long as I keep my board facing the same direction, so I just have to flip it over, drill that hole and this hole, they'll all be the same. So let me give you a quick demonstration of what that looks like. And this is what it looks like when I finish drilling it. I've got 2 holes at this end and 2 holes at this end. And these holes right here correlate to the center of the piece of 2x4 that's going to be coming down here. In fact, let me grab one and I'll show you. There's our 2 holes, and they are going to line up with the solid material of our other piece right there. And once that screw goes in those 2 holes, they'll screw into your bottom side piece, and it will be all locked together. And these are the screws that I'm using to hold these boxes together. They're 3-inch screws, and the drill bit that I use to drill these holes is just a little bit smaller than the diameter of the shaft right here. And the reason I use that is because I don't want the screw threads to be grabbing into this wood. I want them to be grabbing into the piece of wood behind it. So they'll sink, the screw will sink all the way into this piece of wood and into my other piece of 2x4 right here. So that's the reason that I used that drill bit for that process. So just like the fixture I have for drilling the holes on the drill press, well, I made one up so that we can do the assembly of our boxes. And I did one, let's see where I put it. There it is. So here is one that I've already screwed together. And you can see I've got the screws in all 4 sides of it. Come on, I'll show you what that fixture looks like. Real simple. Now let me give you a little demonstration how this thing is going to work. One of our long sides comes up against this edge, which is 90 degrees to this edge. And this also acts as our stop. Our bottom pieces will go at that edge, so this is now 90 degrees right here. This side piece butts up to the back side of this, so it's going to be flush. All of our back is going to be flush. And then our other side is going to go right here. And once we have all these in place, I still have to flush this end up a little bit. Once we have it roughed in like that, let's get our clamps. And we'll start at this end right here. As long as everything is touching my back edge right here, touching this back edge, we are in good shape. We tighten up our clamp, and now this is drawing these 2 edges to these 2 edges right here. So once that's drawn up tight, I can come down at this end and tighten this end up as well. Now the only thing I have to do on this end is to make sure all this right here is flush. And if that's all flush, and this one's a little bit out, if it's not flush, I just take my hammer and tap it. Now we're flush on both sides. Get a little bit more pressure. Everything is tight up against here, flush back here. At that point, we can put some screws in. That is nice, square. In fact, we can check it. It should be diagonal. It should be 25 3/4 each way. I got 25 3/4. 25 3/4, tiny bit full. So, dead on square, and that is ready to go. And there you have it. 28 solid bottom boards without a solid in it yet. And that'll be the next step that I do. Notice too that I did not use any glue in those joints. And the reason I didn't do it is because when I put my solid bottom board in, that's when I'm going to use my glue in the bottom of that, and that'll hold everything together. I've got all those boards, I don't know if the camera's showing it, but right there, all those white boards over there, those will become, I got to cut them to length and they'll become our bottom boards. So we'll pick this up another day. It's some tongue and groove 1x6 pine. So this is what I'm going to be using to do our bottoms of our bottom boards. And for that, we're just back at the chop saw. I set the stop. I know that my measurement is, I think it was 14 9/16. 14 9/16. What I'll be cutting these boards to length at. And it's just a matter of putting them up on the chop saw and just cutting them up. So after I get all these things cut up, I'll show you the stack of wood that I've got. Once again, taking a long piece of wood and making them small again. I'll show you what that looks like before we actually start putting them into the bottom of these bottom boards. So I have all my long pieces now cut into short pieces, and they all will be fitting inside of our board right there. Now, because the length of this will require 4 of these, 4 is too wide, one of them has to get trimmed down to about, I think it was 3 1/4 inches, something like that. But I wanted to kind of like speed up the process handling these boards only one more time. So what I want to do, not only in this little section right here, is to install the bottom boards into the bottom boards, but also in the ends of our bottom board, these little openings right here, which on one side are going to be the entrance to the hive. I've got to plug them up because I don't want 4 entrances. So I've cut out a bunch of little plugs that will just fill the gaps in there, and they will then be nailed into that in place. So I'm going to be using 2 types of guns. I'm going to be using a stapler, which I'm shooting 1 1/4" staple on this, and then to secure the little blocks, I'm using a pin nailer, this little pin nailer, and all it is it's just a nailer, but it shoots a very, 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 very thin nail. That's why they call it a pin nailer. And this also is 1 1/4". So the process that I'll be doing is I'm going to be putting glue on the inside of my surface, assembling my boards together on the outside because they're tongue and groove, so you can't just put them in there. The last one won't fit. I'll have to assemble them and then slide them inside of here. So hopefully, hopefully my process is going to work. And then I'm going to be using tight bond glue. Tight bond, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3. I think it's 3, but it's water resistant glue. So you definitely want to use that on that. So all I'm going to be doing is just laying a bead of glue on the inside corner of all 4 sides. Then after that, I'll get my little starter board right here, my cheat sheet board, so that I can assemble my sides together. And they got to be kind of straight because you don't want to be fighting all that, getting it in there. And I just bring it over to my side slide it in, and hopefully it should work. If it didn't collapse, I got to push the bottom up to make it go in place. And there you go. So everything is in place now, and so put on my ears, and now I'm just going to tack the edges down with those 1.25 inch staples. Now that those are in and glued, ain't coming out, we're going to go ahead and put in our little blocks. And these two will get in place with a little bit of glue on the bottom edge of it. Drop those blocks in. And then we're going to change our gun, and we are going to pin these blocks in place as well. Folks, that is it. There is my bottom board completed with my 2 entrances right there, because I like those small entrances. All right, 27 more to go, and I'll show you everything when it's finished. And there they are, all finished up. 28 solid bottom boards for our bee boxes. Only thing that has to get done to them now is have them wax dipped. And when Muscleman and I start wax dipping all those hive bodies that we're getting ready to do in a couple of weeks, these will get done at the same time. Very, very inexpensive to get these things done. I mean, granted that the material for the bottoms themselves was free, but the lumber was really inexpensive as well. I didn't put the pencil to it, but I don't think I'm going to have, you know, $8 or $9 in each one of these boards. So a great price, and I'm really anxious to start using some solid bottom boards out in that field, because the bees show me that they really do prefer solid bottoms instead of the screen. So I'm going to get these 28 out into the field come springtime and find out just exactly how they're going to do for it. And again, I really do like the idea of having very small entrances to our hives. I've just noticed that in doing removals. They don't need to have all that space. They don't need to have anything fancy. So these things certainly aren't fancy. They're just efficient, and that's all they are. So I hope that what I showed, how I make these bottom boards, may be of interest and help to those that would like to try to do it themselves. Now, there's only one other thing that I'd like to do, and part of what I offer on our channel, besides all this great content that Mr. Ed produces, right, and Good Todd, Charlie, and Wreck-It Ralph, besides all that, I do offer memberships, paid memberships to the channel. And if you so choose to become a member, and it's not required, I still produce videos every single week for everybody. But for those who choose to become a member on the channel, I do a few extra things. First, I do a shout out of your name when you become a member. I allow you all, the members, to watch the videos that I post on Friday a few days early. Generally I get it out on Monday. And then the third thing is that occasionally I'll throw in a members only video. In other words, you have to be a member to the channel to be able to watch it. But those are the only perks that you get. I'll continue making videos for everybody, and they're free. But to become a member, it's $4.99 a month. And it's been a while since I did the names of new members, so let me go ahead and give all these good folks that became members of my channel a shout out. Barbara Funk, Tom Ernst, Andrew Beacon, I know Andrew's in the UK, Jonathan Stevens, I know that because he just sent me some labels, Diva Dawn, Leprechaun, Whitney Hungerford, Aaron Silver, Thorn Hauser, Peter Stuckey, Linda, Miss Mimi, Ragbee 2021, Murdoch's Honeybees, Lady Chin, Love in Circles, Suze Oz, Molly, Clarissa Knob, Leslie Bourgeois, DIY, Dark Matter, Flower Street Farm Bees, Melanie Cruz, I know Melanie very well, Bob, and Kay Parr. So thank all of y'all for becoming members to the channel. Now I know 20 of those names were gifted membership by other members of my channel when I went live, the last time I went live. And speaking of going live, I will be going live every first Saturday of the month, and it's around 9 o'clock in the morning on that Saturday. So once again, on the first Saturday of December, I'll be going live, and all the Saturdays in the 2025 I'll be going live as well. So I think that's all I have for you in this video. Thanks so much for watching. Keep on watching, and I will be making more. God bless. Mr. Red, I'm out of here until the next video.